There's a lot of really unfortunately confused, well-meaning Christians out there that actually haven't read this book and been shown truth. When someone comes to you and they say, well, God took him away from us, he must have needed another angel in heaven, that is absolute garbage. The Lord healed me of multiple types of blood cancer in the last year. Went through multiple rounds of chemotherapy, went through it. The time to get prepared for battle was years before, months before the battle ever began. There's a lot of amazing things that are going to happen in your life. And then undoubtedly, as the Bible tells us, the thief will try and steal, kill, and destroy. And so he's going to try and do that. Doesn't mean he can, doesn't mean that he will. It just says that he's going to. It says he walks around like a roaring lion, not that he is a roaring lion. Big distinction. There's two scriptures I want to go over. This is a really pivotal scripture that I think everyone really needs to know. Proverbs 6:30. We'll start there and we'll read through 31. So it says, excuses might be found for a thief who steals because he is starving. But if he is caught, he must pay back 7 times what he stole, even if he has to sell everything in his house. And it's talking about a thief that steals food, right? But it's not just applicable to someone stealing food. It's about the thief, which we know is the devil. So if we know that that's the thief and that's who he is, if he steals something from you, then he has to pay back 7 times 7. So that's the very first thing that, again, when calamity hits, what do you say? What comes out of your mouth? So you think about that and apply it to spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare isn't going to the top of a mountain and screaming at spirits and saying I'm performing spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare is when someone is trying to kill you. You've got people that are trying to take money from your hand when you did nothing wrong. They're suing you for no reason. And so when you know what the word says, it says that the thief has to pay back 7 times 7. And especially if you're living righteously, if you're living for God. So that's one of the first things that was a pivotal scripture in my mind. The other one that I wanted to hit is John 10:10. The thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. So I was talking with my family member about this today, the difference between stealing, killing, and destroying. When the devil takes someone prematurely away from your family, meaning they get hit with some sort of sickness or disease, or they get killed or something bad happens, that's killing, right? Then you've got stealing and destroying. So you would think well, if they're dead, how much more could you destroy them? That's the question that I asked when I was looking at okay, well, you're dead. What stealing and destroying could be done? Because there's a ripple effect, just like on the positive side, there's a ripple effect on the negative side that the enemy tries to essentially put on in that scenario when it comes to evil being done to you or your family. It's important to know this because when someone comes to you and they say, well, God took him away from us, he must have needed another angel in heaven, that is absolute garbage. And I have a real problem with this as someone who, the Lord healed me of multiple types of blood cancer in the last year. Went through multiple rounds of chemotherapy, went through it. I didn't have too many people do this to me because I think they're smart enough to, but I had a couple people be well, it's God's plan. I'm you don't understand. You don't get it, because the truth is God didn't do this to me because God, this is another thing. You guys want to have a big rider downer here. God can't give you something that he doesn't have. So the next time somebody says, well, this is one of the most sickening things ever, and I'll probably offend some people on the call, so that's okay. You can leave if you want. But there's a book called Don't Waste Your Cancer by John Piper. He's a pastor. And I think that should be, the manuscript should be burned, every single one of them, because of what's inside of it. There was a kid that came up to me at a local restaurant. He said, yeah, man, the doctor has diagnosed me with this super rare form of cancer, and the only thing I can do is chemotherapy, and it has a 5% success rate. And so I went to church, and then my pastor gave me this book called Don't Waste Your Cancer, and it was really defeating. Basically, it was saying hey, you're probably, you might die, and God's got a purpose in all of this by giving this to you. And he could have misinterpreted it, so maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh. But the point is the takeaway that he had from that book was that God did this to him. And that is literally nowhere in this book. You cannot find a spot where God actually rewarded someone with sickness. You can't find a spot where God said, because you did this, I'm going to give you sickness. Neither can you find a place where Jesus is walking around in the New Testament and someone asked to be healed and they are not healed. Find one spot and send it to me. The only place that he couldn't heal someone is in his hometown because of their unbelief. So anytime that someone asked Jesus to be healed in this book, it happened. It's an important note. So if we know that the thief comes not but to steal, kill, and destroy, and we know that Jesus has come so that we might have life and life more abundantly, That's like one of the core foundational scriptures you have to know. I just felt led to share that with you guys because I think that there's a lot of really bad doctrine. There's a lot of really unfortunately confused, well-meaning Christians out there that actually haven't read this book and been shown truth. And they will try and essentially speak out of their lack of knowledge, saying like, oh, well, it's all in God's plan. Like, can God do amazing things with like whatever like tiny bit that you give him? Absolutely. Can he turn your disaster into a miracle? 100% he can. But that doesn't mean that he gave it to you in the first place, because he can't give you what he doesn't have. When you get to heaven, there are no handicapped parking spots because there are no handicapped people in heaven. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing. You don't get up to heaven and people are like, oh man, yeah, you still got that, still dealing with that back problem. Like, guys, it's not a thing. If God's up in heaven, he can't give you something that he doesn't have. But the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy.